Do not let your depression or anger or darker emotions take hold of you. We will pull out of this. We'll pull forward. We will pull together, unite, and become stronger as people and as a country going forward. Hold in our own hearts, at the very least, in our own hearts, that Charlie Kirk's message of political change through speech and anti-violence
Yeah.
to be, to be the way that we have going forward, and to not, mar his memory and everything he stood for by, giving into our lesser demons. And there are bad actors who are saying, hey, Charlie Kirk, the guy who was about debating people, well, since he was murdered, we should honor his memory by like violently murdering and attacking other people, which that
Who's
just
saying that?
trounces all over Charlie Kirk's memory. Right? He
Yeah,
wasn't in favor of any of that stuff.
yeah.
Hello, everyone. Very bad day today and yesterday. So I'm sure all of you were. Charlie Kirk was assassinated in the middle of a speaking engagement on stage at a college campus. And it was all caught on camera. It was completely horrific.
I mean, it's difficult because the guy was like 31 years old. He's got a wife, he's got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I can't,
Yeah,
I empathize with that. Like, mommy's got to go tell the 4-year-old daddy's gone. Like, that's fucked up.
of
That is
course.
completely fucked up. Yes. And I know, look, a lot of people, I think the instinct on the right, like a lot of people, they want to go and say, oh, these fucking heartless cowards, they have no empathy for the guy. They're celebrating, they're laughing, they're screaming. I I I mean, I don't blame these people as much as I blame the people who fucking brainwashed them. So I mean,
Right.
it's I blame a culture that allows people to demonize an innocent man systematically to the point where some useful idiot buys a gun and thinks they're blowing away Hitler.
Right.
So
Right.
the people celebrating, they're fucking delusional. They're useful idiots. They're fools. They're fools.
Hmm.
But none of us would have any empathy whatsoever if Hitler got his head blown off. Because that's the proper response. That's the proper response. So I constantly say this, and look, for it's happened before the election. It drives me insane because the left gets it. Like, I talked a little bit before the stream about the groomer thing. They understood when conservatives wanted to go out there and call them groomers that this turned them into a target, right? Obviously, pedophiles are a target by society, right? They were like,
Right.
you're going to cause stochastic terrorism. You're going to get people killed. They understand it, right?
Hmm.
But at the same time, they will go around willy nilly calling everybody fascist, calling everybody fucking Nazi, calling everybody racist. And they just, it's like they're the biggest fucking hypocrites in the world, right? They
Hmm.
they they want to protect every stereotype for trans people, for black people, for any marginalized person, but then at the same time, they want to create a stereotype that turns people like Charlie Kirk into a fucking target.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, it fucking drives me crazy. It drives me fucking crazy. So I don't know what to do. I don't know how to turn the culture around. I don't know. There's just, we are swimming. And this is why I thought Asmongold's video was great. Look, I disagree with a lot in Asmongold's video because Asmongold is basically saying like violence cannot be avoided at this point. I like to think violence could be avoided at this point and we can settle this peacefully and politically. Um,
Hmm.
but we have to do something about, we're swimming in fucking crazy people. We're swimming
Yeah.
in crazy people. And we have to do something to deprogram those people or take them off the streets, take them off the board. So,
Hmm.
I mean, that's a huge problem. Look, and I asked Sitch a little bit before the stream, like, how do we deal with that? So maybe a conversation about that is in order. I don't know.
Yeah. Ezra Klein, who I don't really like that much, so I'm, pleasantly surprised to see his response to this. He put out a post where he said, it's ghoulish to mock or justify the shooting of Charlie Kirk. Rising political violence is a horror of our time. Unchecked, it will lead to catastrophes none of us want to imagine. Deeply hoping he pulls through. This was before he was announced dead. We are all people, whatever we believe, that has to come first. And then he wrote an op-ed for the New York Times that said the title is Charlie Kirk was practicing politics the right way. And he kind of goes on about how, even though he disagreed with Charlie Kirk, he was going around to college campuses persuading people, with words and creating this political machine through the correct political cross process. He wasn't using violence. Right.
Just,
So,
I just want to say, obviously, if you perceive of him as Hitler, that sounds terrifying.
right. I understand
He's
that. I
going
understand
around
that.
persuading people the same way Hitler persuaded
Right.
people.
Right. Though to be clear, obviously Ezra's not saying any of that in his article.
As Ezra is not,
Yeah.
but like
Right.
I'm just making my argument that the
You're
stereotype
correct.
is fucking driving the ship here. That is the
Mm,
problem.
right. And that's why it's so stereotypes that we were talking about, stereotype threat is so dangerous, which is something that we've both talked about for years on this channel. But so in response to Ezra Klein's article, Brianna Joy Gray posts on X, seriously, does Ezra Klein have no one in his life, no editor, no friend to tell him not to publish this? If you're black or trans or an immigrant or Arab or a woman, how can you read a word Ezra without thinking this is a guy who will excuse extreme violence and bigotry against me as secondary to checks, notes, belief in the continued possibility of American politics? So,
That's
uh,
see, look,
yeah, which is
she is
exactly,
insane.
but that's exactly what you're kind of talking about. And I bring this up because the way to look about this, and I guess maybe I'll just read my post because I think I laid it out uh, pretty decently. I said, I like what Ezra said about this, but now is the time for non-psychos on the left to directly call out, name, criticize, and expunge from the movement the psycho alt-left radical types like Brianna Joy Gray. I've seen a large amount of left-wing commentators speak out against the horror of Charlie Kirk's murder. I'm glad to see that they have humanity and decency. However, a lot of the replies and comments to them by people in their audience are violent and unhinged, either supporting the murder or hand waving it away. Denouncing the murder and not addressing the radicals in your audience is not enough. There needs to be a direct campaign by political commentators to shame and purge the extremists out of their own spheres and to stop the extreme us versus them, good versus evil rhetoric that they have been cultivating. This needs to be a wake up call to the widespread radicalization process that has been happening online. And that, to answer your question, is how do we pull out of this? Where do we go out of this? That's the answer. That's the only way that I see is that there needs to be this. And I mean, I know it's, maybe somewhat of a long shot, but I could be somewhat optimistic. There needs to be this sort of eye-opening process, the fact that, okay, from a lot of people, especially people on the left, to say, okay, we've been cultivating through our rhetoric, either wittingly or unwittingly, an audience that is completely radicalized and could very easily go out there and contribute to stochastic terrorism. And the only way this is going to stop is if we stop this, crazy rhetoric and if we can disagree with each other in politics without going to everyone's Hitler, everyone's a Nazi, fascism, et cetera, et cetera. And to the people that continue that rhetoric need to be called out, shamed, expunged from the movement, not allied with, just because you think that they're useful allies in this current political time period.
Yeah, in the next election.
Yeah, because the way that this all works, and unfortunately the way that it seems like it's always worked, is you have a political situation where everyone's getting ratcheted up and everyone starts using very demonic incendiary rhetoric. Use Groomer as like the perfect example. Is people use very extreme rhetoric on both sides at each other that it's easy to see how someone does a stochastic terrorism from these comments. And then what happens is eventually someone's going to go and do that stochastic terrorism. They're going to go do that act. And then that the one side says, "Oh, look, we've been completely demonized." And the other side that proves that we were saying all along that this side is demons. And then the things just kind of ratchet up, ratchet up, ratchet up, and can spin out of control unless you have people actually become adults in the room and say, "Okay, we need to stop this. We need to go back to the idea that we're all Americans at the end of the day. We do believe in democracy. We do believe in free speech, and we do believe solving our differences with elections and not violence."
Yeah, I've seen a message going around on the right that the right is nonviolent and it's the left that are all the psycho violent crazies. And I
Mhm.
really, I hope, I hope that ends up being true in the end and that
Right.
there is no sort of retaliatory violence. Right now, obviously, the right has the White House and they have Congress. So if there is some sort of swift political action that is satisfying, maybe it prevents that. I'm
Hmm.
just I do like to see that. I mean, obviously, we have this back and forth with the people on the right in our audience, where a lot of them they want to deny there's any sort of racism on the right or there's any sort of violence on the right. At this moment, I think maybe a little denial of that is probably a good thing because I want them to embody that and for that to ultimately be true.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like I'm mentioning this on Twitter and I'm trying to chill people out, and you've got people on the left coming out with long lists of all the things the right has done that are violent. And I keep thinking, okay, we're just in this useful idiot fucking cycle where it's going to be tit for tat and we're going to descend into violence, which I mean, obviously, I think JFK and Martin Luther King were like huge turning points in the civil rights movement. But
Hmm.
ultimately, the civil rights movement was settled politically. So
Right.
the if we can settle it politically, I don't. It seems like there's a stable end. What is a stable end for uh, retribution and violence if we start going down that path?
Like the difficulty compared to like the civil rights movement is there's not, I don't think it's not like there's a piece of legislation I think that can be passed that would fix whatever is going on right now.
Hmm.
It's more uh ephemeral, maybe. It's more just like the rhetoric, the way in which people are talking with each other. Now, I think it would definitely help if X and YouTube and Twitch and Blue Sky definitely, which the amount of people celebrating this got so out of control in Blue Sky that they actually said they were going to start banning people for advocating for this shit. Is that these platforms I think do need to be a lot harsher on people that are doing these calls for violence and things like that of that nature, and not just let this stuff go by.
People, I do think people are unhappy. Obviously, the left and the right are both turning to different reasons why people are unhappy, but they seem to both believe
Hmm.
that there is a situation where people are unhappy, and obviously unhappy people are more likely to turn to violence.
Of
So,
course, yeah,
especially political violence.
of course. What I would say to the right at the moment, especially the internet right specifically, is I understand the skepticism that you have when someone like Ezra or Stephen Colbert or a lot of people on the left who are denouncing the violence to not trust them because the argument is, which I think is correct, is you were all using rhetoric that was hyperbolizing the evil level of Charlie Kirk and people like Charlie Kirk, and you don't get to act surprised that some violence actually occurred. And I understand that. I think that's true. I think that's true. But
100% true.
yeah. But the way that I would say is don't just accept the solution to that is not just don't accept it blindly. Their words is to say, okay, we will accept your words if you actually change. You do need to change. You do need to stop this rhetoric. You do need to expunge the radicals from your audience. I think that's the correct way to respond to it. I don't think the correct way to respond to it is to say, fuck you. Now it's our turn for revenge and there will be blood in the streets and all this other shit. Because not only is that obviously incredibly immoral, but I really think that if whoever kind of goes to mass violence first, I do think is going to lose from a completely self-interested perspective, if you're in one of these sides, whichever side goes to mass violence first is going to lose the argument because the normies out there don't want this. They don't want violence. And they're not going to and they're not part of this internet ecosystem where everyone's becoming more and more hyper radicalized. And so you can't let the anger just completely dominate your mind so that you're going to become self-destructive. Calls for glorifying or alluding to violence is against TOS, regardless of political direction or purpose, will not be tolerated in chat. You'll be timed out and possibly banned. Yes, no one in chat should ever, for any reason, be glorifying or calling for violence against the left or the right, or really anyone, and you will be banned by all moderators, any moderator, if you engage in that behavior in chat. We are 100% against that here at the Sitch Adam Show.
Yes. Trying to talk people off the cliff here.
Yes, exactly. Guess who says, I'm not trying to be flippant, but aside from January 6th, can you give me examples of the right being violent in the last 10 years? Well, I mean, they literally was 2 Democrats that were just murdered.
Murdered in Minnesota, like 2 weeks ago.
And what was that guy's name? There was a Republican House representative that was making fun of it. So.
Yeah. Don't go down.
Right.
Well, it's easy to do, but just assume there's some pieces of shit on your side too.
Yes, there is. Like, come on.
Best to assume that. Yeah. Right. Look, it's your job to keep them in line. They're on your side.
Yeah, and I don't want to do the whole like wound collecting. like literally, if you go on X right now, or you just go on Google and type in like acts of left-wing violence, acts of right-wing violence, you're going to find the list. Okay, I don't like doing the whole wound collecting.
Yes.
I don't like doing the whole whataboutism. The
point is that we need to
here. Yes, to move forward. Exactly, to me, the wound collecting, it's very similar to sort of the. Thank you for the $100. It's kind of like what I always say with the Palestine-Israel situation. Part of the reason that got to where it got to is because you had a situation where one side, to some extent both sides, but really one side, was unable to say, okay, the future for our children is more important than the wound collecting of the past. Now, I don't think it's going to get to that point as it did with Israel Palestine, obviously in America, but it's sort of the same, very similar visceral emotional energy that I think people have at the moment about seeking for revenge, and then people doing the whataboutism or the defense or all this other nonsense. So,
yeah, obviously. And there becomes a tallying exercise that takes place that you can't stop until everything is completely even, and you're never going to be completely even. So
right,
you got to think of the future. So that's what's going wrong on so much of the left. Obviously, so much of the CRT stuff and all of that stuff is just grievance culture from things that happened eons ago. So
yes,
can't fall into that trap on the right as well.
Yeah.
We're trying to escape that trap.
Wound collect, and it's always used to justify further violence. This person did this to me, this person did X to me, whatever. Sells Temple says, how is Trump not relevant? If the right refuses to bear the cross and demand that he lowers rhetoric, the left shouldn't be expected to either. More so if it's just reporting on the crazy shit he says and does. Well, I think Trump is relevant. I don't remember exactly what Miram said that you're reacting to. This would be a time, hopefully, I don't know if we're going to get that, but this would be a time for whoever would be the president, which is Trump now, to be a leader in the situation and to try to lead things into a cooling situation.
Yeah, to try to tamp down the rhetoric.
Now, obviously, people who listen know I don't have a lot of confidence in Donald Trump doing that successfully, but maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. But I definitely have seen a lot of right-wing creators for years, saying these people are totally fucking evil, irredeemable, despicable people.
Charlie Kirk never said stuff.
I don't think Charlie Kirk said that. No, not to my knowledge. But I have seen right-wing commentators. I mean, fucking Tim Pool says shit like this all the time. He goes on his super angry rants about shit all the time. We've gone on angry rants about, the socialists all the time. It's just sort of everyone gets riled up in these situations. So I do think it's, this should be the wake-up call that we all need to
Dial it back.
dial it fucking back and to criticize people for, the ideas that they have, the wrong ideas, without going too far into just making everyone enraged. That's part of the problem, is that so much of the internet environment, I think this is, the CGP Grey video we talked about, that was from years ago. So much of the way in which people make money online is by making everyone angry. That's one of the best ways to generate views and clicks and everything. And
Yeah.
people are aware of this. People are obviously aware that this is going on. They're not, ignorant of this. Reed says, "How should the right respond? What should they do from here?" So I said this earlier, but I'll say it again. I think the correct course for the right would be to say, okay, to the people on the left who are coming out, to the left-wing pundits and the commentators that are coming out and saying that the violence against Charlie Kirk was wrong. I think what the right's reaction to that should be, okay, we accept that, but yeah,
a big but.
You need to actually come out and denounce the people in your audience and other left-wing creators that are supporting this. And you need to openly talk about how the political rhetoric that you participated in has helped ratchet up this situation, and actively talk about and realize that you need to do better, that you need to participate. You can't just say, "Oh, I denounce this today," and then tomorrow you go back to business as usual. You need to denounce this and then change your behavior to say, okay, we're going to try to not create so much of this us versus them, black and white, demons versus angels.
Yeah, but don't say
rhetoric.
Do better. Yeah.
Right. Worldview in terms of how we're going to talk about it. That's what I would say that the right should do.
Don't tell them to do better. So obviously that's something that they constantly say, do better, do better.
Yeah, well, that's just kind of like a meme, so it doesn't really mean anything. But
yeah, they have to live up to their label of influencer. It's time to stop just calling yourself an influencer and actually try to be a fucking influencer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Try to persuade your audience.
The Justice 36 months says, "I'm tired, boss. As a Democrat, I've condemned political violence, but the right seems to thrive off of it. January 6th, the Minnesota Democrat shot the attempt on Governor Shapiro." Listen, I understand that it's very difficult for you to see the justice, just as it's very difficult for some of the right-wingers in our audience to see. It's so difficult to see that while you personally, as many right-wingers or audience personally, have condemned violence on your side, and you see people on the other side don't condemn violence, you just have to understand that's everybody. That is everybody. That is everybody. Okay. There's so many people on the left and the right that are willing to support violence for their own purposes and only condemn it when it's, against someone on their side.
But there's a huge problem here look, you're saying, but the right seems to thrive off of violence. So you're basically putting the right in a situation. Now, look, no, we're not going to say there's no violent element on the right. But you are saying that an innate part of the right is violence. I mean, you're basically saying it in your super chat.
Yeah.
So how are you not how are you not embodying the stereotype that the right is irredeemable, the right is violent, and nothing can be done about it?
Yeah, that's true.
There are good people on the right who are fucking not violent. Charlie Kirk was one of them. Right.
Well, and especially now when you see so many people on the left, the far left, or whoever left, cheering this on.
This is an excuse. This is an excuse. This is the left can be violent because the right is that's all they are, is violent. Yeah. Our violence is just little violence. Their violence is just epic. I mean, that's what you're saying. Look, and I think that's what you believe. I think that's honestly what you believe. So, what do we do to change that? I don't know. So
that's why I said it doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right. It doesn't matter. The wound collecting will only bring you to the path of destruction and death. You just have to stop, like the whataboutism. It doesn't matter. You just have to always push for the correct course of action.
There are bad people I hate. There are bad people on all sides.
Yes,
exactly.
Forever. Yeah, of course.
There are bad people, yes. And those bad people are tribalists as well, and they take a side and they're bad people, and sometimes they join your side and sometimes they join the other side. But they can't become invisible because they join your tribe. You have to realize, okay, these people are still pieces of shit. I'm hoping that this is a huge turning point, and I mean, Providence calling his organization Turning Points, and
Right.
people take this to heart and actually start moving in the direction that Sitch is talking about with calling out this violent rhetoric.
Yeah, Halcyon says Chris Gore of Film Threat he said it best, quote, "We as a society have become addicted to anger and outrage." That's 100% true.
Yeah.
100% true.
Well, we became addicted to fast food too, but we're kind of getting past that. So maybe we can get some healthier habits.
Yeah. Sade Ray says liberals and the left generally think Trump is a fascist or an authoritarian. Even good faith liberals like Jesse Singal call his presidency a crisis. They really do see Trump as a threat to democracy. Well, first of all, I think Trump does his best to not as I said, to trigger the left into thinking he's a threat to democracy. So I don't think you can sit here and say, well, Jesse Singal and even me and other people are foolish for thinking the guy who literally tried to throw out half the country's vote and demand himself president again, he could be a threat to democracy. The guy who continually, again and again, seems to be shitting on existing principles and laws to try to do what he wants, who is suing people for speaking out against him, who's trying to force lawyers who sue the government to not be able to practice law. I'm sorry, but you cannot honestly say that Donald Trump is an innocent baby angel and the left is completely unhinged for being afraid of the threats of power that Trump is engaging in currently. That is not if you don't see that, you don't see that Trump is definitely engaging that behavior, and all the memes he puts out there just makes the left go crazy. And I think it's intentional. Then that's your own political bias. That's your own political bias. So I would really hope that Trump will take this as a time to say, okay, we all need to tamp down the rhetoric, including myself. And maybe these memes, or I post a meme of me in front of Chicago on fire as Apocalypse Now. Maybe it's not worth it. Maybe I'm only hurting, the country instead of helping it. But we'll see.
I think people are happy that they have a president that's active and is going to react to this and do something about it, even if it's just some sort of executive order or some sort of policy shift. I mean, I agree with you that obviously I would love him to embrace it more presidentially and without all the rhetoric. I don't know if it's just some part of his personality that can't be separated from his active role.
Yeah, I want the people, because there's some people in chat who are who become so defensive at any sort of criticism of Trump, to just take a moment to breathe and to try to have some reflection of what I said. I did not say that Donald Trump was responsible for Charlie Kirk's death. I never said that, and I would never say that. I said that he's contributing to ratchet up the feeling that the left has of the danger that the country is in. And you know this, and I know you know this because you like it. You laugh about it. You like the memes. You like how Trump trolls the left. You understand this in that context. Okay.
Well, their response would be that they're going to have that same triggered response if he just blows his nose.
But that's a cope. That is a cope.
I completely agree that they're going to have the same response.
That's a cope. I'm sorry. That's a 100% cope. Because we know what? We don't live in that world. We've never tested that out. We don't know if that's the case. Okay. We don't live in that world. And people can try to cope and say, well, they called Mitt Romney bad names and George W. Bush bad names and all this other stuff. That's all fine and good, right? Rush Limbaugh called Bill Clinton a demon, 20 fucking years ago. Okay. People said Obama was a socialist, 15 years ago. This is just the way politics is, right? And I'm sorry, some of you maybe are too young to remember this. This is just the way it's always been. But if you want to actually jump out of the matrix and have some objective view here, you cannot sit here and tell me that in terms of rhetoric, and in terms of people's fears and ratcheting things up, that Donald Trump is an innocent baby angel who didn't do nothing bad. That is just so not true whatsoever. And you're not actually viewing reality objectively if that's the way that you're going to argue it.
He,
And it's unfortunate that of all the people in the world, it falls on Hasan to do this. But I do think if Hasan did do this, which would be great, and I think it would definitely help things. I don't think he's going to do it because, again, he's a piece of shit, generally, is, because he was supposed to debate Charlie Kirk, would be if instead he goes to that time slot they're supposed to debate and, participates in some sort of nice memorial for Charlie Kirk. I think that would be very helpful to the country.
that would go a long way. And it's hard for me to imagine Hassan would ever do that because his audience would completely abandon him.
Yeah.
They would just say, "Oh my God, you're the biggest cuck in the world. Fuck you."
Yeah.
His audience is a bloodthirsty audience. That's his audience.
Yep. No, as I'm saying, it's unfortunate it falls on Hassan's shoulders to engage in that. Though, I mean, maybe it would just be good for a lot of left-wing and right-wing politicians and left-wing and right-wing commentators and political pundits to come together to do a memorial service for Charlie Kirk would be, I think, very good.
Yeah, look, if Hassan actually did that though, he might work himself into the Joe Rogan of the left position.
That's true.
He might
That's true.
he might win over a bunch of fucking left-wing normies.
Yeah.
And be able to tell that audience, that bloodthirsty audience, to take a hike.
If you could just convince Hassan for his own self-interest.
Yes, exactly.
You could convince him to do it. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Maybe Anna can convince Jank, and Jank can convince
There
Hassan.
you go. But well, thank you guys for coming. Thank you for your crazy generous donations. I know it's definitely a crazy time, a dark time. Do not let your depression or anger or darker emotions take hold of you. We will pull out of this. We'll pull forward. We will pull together, unite, and become stronger as people and as a country going forward.
Yeah, let's try to be optimistic until things actually get worse. Okay, and not dwell on what we cannot change,
Yes.
and try to focus on what we can, the people in our lives that actually matter. So
let us hold in our own hearts, at the very least, in our own hearts, that Charlie Kirk's message of political change through speech and anti-violence to be, to be the way that we have going forward, and to not, mar his memory and everything he stood for by, giving into our lesser demons.
right. Yeah, well, that's a good message. I guess we'll leave it there. We'll see you guys on Sunday. We have a great show planned for you on Sunday.